They tried to quench the fire, drown it all in chains, tried to break our will and wash away our names. But every spark they buried only fed the flame. Now the cry of freedom's roaring through the rain. Hear the cry of freedom on the winds of change. Every voice united, breaking every chain. We were born to stand and never bow again. Let the fire of liberty forever reign. Forever reign. Now the walls are shaking from the battle cry. Truth is rising to the sky. Every soul that ever felt the weight of chains feels the fire of freedom in their veins. No more chains, no more lies. Hear the thunder as we rise. Freedom's call won't be denied. Now the fire burns worldwide. Hear the cry of freedom on the winds of change. Every voice united, breaking every chain. We were born to stand and never bow again. Let the fire of liberty forever reign. Let the fire of liberty forever reign.
Hello, friends. Do you have a moment so that we may discuss our Lord and Savior Minarchy? No, seriously, I'm just kidding. Hi, my name's Rick Robinson. I am the general manager of KLRNradio.com. We are probably the largest independent podcast network that you've never heard of. We have a little bit of everything, and by that, what I mean to tell you is we have news, pop culture, special events, conspiratainment, true crime, mental health shows, drama productions, and pretty much everything in between. So if you're looking for a new podcast home to grab a little bit of everything that you love all in one place, come check us out. You can find us on X under @KLRNradio. You can find us on our Rumble and our YouTube channels under the same names. You can also find us at KLRNradio.com and pretty much every podcast catcher known to man. So again, feel free to come check us out anytime you like at KLRNradio.
Come gather round the footlights, lads, and hear the old boards groan. A tale of ink and iron will, of voices overblown. From mics and scripts to painted sails, we've traded shore for sea. The players will man the rigging soon. Aye, your hands, follow me. From Long John shadowed silver grin to Jim with compass true. We speak the words, we wear the scars. We just ship a single breath. The course is not set yet. We players sail, we players sail, we players sail soon. All hands to KLRN Radio, setting sail for Treasure Island, March 2026.
2 million podcasts, and we know that it is impossible to figure out what to listen to. On Good Pods, you follow your friends and podcasters to see what they like. That is the #1 way to discover new shows and episodes. You can find Good Pods on the web or download the app. Happy listening.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
The following program contains coarse language and adult themes. Listener discretion is advised.
From red dirt roads to the Capitol steps, Rick's calling truth, no time for regrets. Fire in his voice, facts in his hand, talking sense to the heart of this land. It's the Rick Robinson Show, where the truth rides high. No spin, no script, just an eagle in the sky. From D.C. to Tulsa, he's calling it out. Mic in his hand, yeah, he's got the clout. Heartland Radio, raw and real. Tune in, speak up, and feel what we feel.
Uh-oh, guess what day it is? Guess what day it is? Huh? Anybody?
It is Wednesday, my dudes.
With guests in the mix and callers on cue, he's a voice for the many, not the few. We'll grab your coffee,
And welcome into the program, ladies and gentlemen. And that's right, it is Chat Lives Matter Day right here live on KLRradio.com, otherwise known as Wednesday. For those of you working for the weekend, you're about at the top of the hill. So yeah, today is Wednesday, Chat Lives Matter Day, Hump Day, and that is given to you in no particular order. However, hope everybody's having a great Wednesday. I'm kind of not, I have to admit. I got mad last night. And we're going to be getting into that a lot in hour 2 because the masks have come off. The cheating is now happening right in front of us. And the side that keeps quote unquote winning doesn't care because it's their side doing all the chicanery and shenanigans. And I said what I said. And and the funny thing about that is what they don't realize is eventually the side that they're currently cheering on is going to turn on them too, because I've been telling you guys for years that the reason the left is so haughtily and openly cheering for Iran to win right now is because they've been running their side of the aisle the same way Iran does. The left has basically been acting like the mafia now for years, and I've been trying to tell everybody this, and nobody wanted to believe me. Only a handful of people wanted to see it, but now they're doing it right out in the open. So in hour 2, we're going to do a deep dive on all the different ways the Democratic Party has basically become the political mafia. But for hour 1, of course, we got to talk about what's going on with Iran and the fact that the media is saying one thing, the president is saying another, and apparently there is a bit of a civil war of sorts going on in Iran right now, because I guess the IRGC is tired of people that are trying to make deals with Trump, and so they've kidnapped the supposed leader, which makes no sense to me because I'm pretty sure that leader was already in their pocket. I think maybe that leader's just trying to keep what's left of his body intact and try to stay alive. And I don't think they like it very much. But of course, we're going to start by talking about that because there's been lots of things that have happened. As I said earlier, the ceasefire has been extended. I don't really know how much I agree with them extending the ceasefire yet again. But unlike ABC News reported yesterday, this is apparently not an indefinite ceasefire. And I think Trump is just kind of waiting to see if any more of these cracks that we're starting to see widen, deepen, or what happens. But here's what's happening in the meantime. Iran appears to be testing the limits of the ceasefire as less than 24 hours after President Trump extended it, the regime reportedly attacked 3 vessels attempting to pass through the Strait of Hormuz and seized control of 2 of them, according to sources. Now, we've got a clip, and of course we're going to play that, but hang on, I got to find the right screen to put it into because I realized I didn't load it in advance because I have been frantically prepping all morning because of all the news that's going on. So one moment, please. Spring must be sprunging because I hear birds out my window. Interesting. Maybe we're finally getting to the point where it's gonna stop with the back and forth weather. I hope soon because it's been weird here again. Anyway, here is one of the video clips that I was talking about. I think. Nope, that's not the right one. But that one will work in a minute, so I'm glad I found it. Here we go.
State media claiming the country attacked 3 ships in the Strait of Hormuz, and 2 of the vessels are apparently now in the control of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard.
This is Axios reports that President Trump is giving Iran 3 to 5 days to unify behind a ceasefire counteroffer. That's getting their side on the same page, let alone getting us on the same page with them. Lucas Tomlinson joins us now with the details. Lucas, what's the problem with Iran?
Well, Brian, just hours after President Trump extended the ceasefire to Iran indefinitely, it appears that Iran is already breaking it, opening fire on at least 3 vessels in the Strait of Hormuz and commandeering 2 of them. And President Trump announcing the ceasefire yesterday on Truth Social. I'll read it to you, Brian, and everyone. It says, quote, based on the fact that the government of Iran is seriously fractured, we have been asked to hold our attack on the country of Iran until such time as their leaders and representatives can come up with a unified proposal. I have therefore directed our military to continue the blockade and in all other respects remain ready and able, and will therefore extend the ceasefire until such time as their proposal is submitted and discussions are concluded. Now, early this morning, the first attack by Iranian gunboats took place in the Strait of Hormuz, causing heavy damage to the bridge where you drive the ship, of course. The second attack took place 8 miles off the coast of Iran, the third attack nearby. Ship tracking shows a Panamanian flagged and Liberian flagged vessels attacked and seized. Iran's state broadcaster says the 2 vessels are currently inside Iran's territorial waters, being held for inspection of their cargo, documentation, and related records. Recalls just a few days ago, on Friday, in fact, when President Trump said Iran would never again close the Strait of Hormuz. Last night, he said financial pressure is key to ending the war, posting, quote, Iran is collapsing financially. They want the Strait of Hormuz opened immediately, starving for cash, losing $500 million a day. Military and police complaining that they are not getting paid. SOS. Now, Vice President J.D. Vance's trip to Islamabad for a second round of talks with Iran continues to be on hold. Iran says they are not sending a delegation until the blockade is lifted. And certainly, Brian, you have to imagine that after Iran commandeered 2 ships, attacking 3 of them, that also will jeopardize these talks in Islamabad.
I would say so. Thanks so much. And that's kind of new, Lucas, that we didn't know they were holding on to the ships, UK and Panamanian. And also 21 minutes ago, the senior Iranian advisor says the U.S. blockade is no different than bombing us and must be responded with a military response. And that is the speaker, Mahdi Mohammadi, an advisor to the parliament speaker, came out with that statement, we assume, from the speaker. So let's see. Do they want to end the ceasefire, Lawrence?
They don't. They don't want to end it.
All right, so there you have part of it. Now, there's a lot more going on with this because, again, Iran claims that they opened fired on some vessels and seized a couple. But what exactly are they up to here? Because, yeah, they're not happy about what's going on. They're being squeezed by U.S. blockades that are costing them anywhere between estimated 435 to 550 million dollars a day. And according to Secretary of Treasury Scott Bessent, as he's explained, that's going to cause their Karg Island operation to be shut in soon. That's the money that sustains the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, otherwise known as the IRGC, that would then, of course, be cut off. Meanwhile, the U.S. is even seizing its ships like the MV Tosca and tried to run the U.S. blockade. Now, the interesting thing about that is we now know what was on board that particular cargo vessel and why it was they were so intent on trying to run the blockade. There were lots of missile fuel sources and stuff in there. So yeah, it seems like Iran may still be getting help from other sources, and we'll be getting into that in a minute because I've got some other updates from the Secretary of Treasury. However, so they did try to run the U.S. blockade, but what's the regime? What are the regime's options right now? They can continue to try to make trouble in the strait because they can. Iranian state TV claimed on Wednesday that the regime had fired on 3 ships and seized 2 of them. Of course, because they're the regime, there are some problems with that story. The first part of the story is that 4 Mediterranean shipping company ships ran the same line as the cruise ships that had been running to avoid the IRGC. You can see them turn off their transponders as they were going through the strait and then coming back on again after they made it past. So the question becomes, were these ships actually seized or not? So 6 more ships made it past the strait, hugging the coast with their transponders off. The problem arose with the 2 ships traveling separately, the MSC Francesca and the Eponymous. I'm probably butchering the hell out of that name. Iran claims they fired on them and seized them. They also claim they fired on the Euphoria, and that it is stranded off the Iranian coast. But the present location shows that the Euphoria is at Khor Fakkan in the United Arab Emirates. So they don't really seem like they're very stranded now, do they? That sounds like a lot of as we used to say when we were trying to be politically correct, male bovine excrement. Yeah, just saying. The UK Maritime Trader Operations Agency, is known as the UKMTC, said that one of the ships reported being fired on by the IRGC gunboat without any prior warning about 15 nautical miles northeast of Oman. So the problem may have been that these 3 ships weren't hugging Oman as much as they were further north towards Iran and the approved lane that Iran is monitoring. The crews are reportedly uninjured. Now, this is obviously an effort for the IRGC to flex after their ship was seized by the U.S. The problem is it's not U.S. ships, and they're just antagonizing more countries, other people over their actions, and that only increases the calls that they need to be dealt with. So it's a flex, but it's all. You remember Bugs Bunny when he would, be like trying to show off, and he would be like, look at what I can do, and a little tiny muscle would come up, and he would like squeeze it to try to make it even bigger, and then the cartoon would go boom, and all of a sudden the arm was all flabby and saggy, and muscle was in the opposite direction. I kind of feel like that's what's going on with Iran right now. But of course, all of the media, including some of the sources that we try to pay more attention to, are all falling in line with the IRGC's BS as far as what they're reporting. The problem with that is one of the biggest people that's been reporting all of the IRGC stuff and doing it as if they're kind of in the room, they're in California. So, we might get into that in a minute as well. I don't really know. Because, let's see. I think I have that story here somewhere. Give me just a second. Because I just realized I still have that on the screen while I'm trying to figure something out. And the last time I did that, people were like, what are you doing? Like, I forgot I had it on the wrong output. Anyway, okay. So, let's see what we can find here. Because like I said, I know I've got that somewhere if I can find it. All right. No, not finding that bit right now. But we'll get back to that in a minute. All right. So, in other news, in our international block, as I've come to call our opening first bit of the show, I don't know if you've heard about this yet. This is from Ward Clark over at Red State. A Chinese national has been intercepted at JFK Airport after an airbase incident. So let's look into this together. This is from Raw News Alerts. A 21-year-old Chinese national, Tianuru Liang, has been arrested and is facing charges after photographing a U.S. Doomsday plane and other military aircraft without authorization at Offutt Air Force Base in Nebraska. He was taken into custody at JFK Airport. So, following the incident, according to Fox News, a Chinese national was arrested at New York's John F. Kennedy International Airport after federal authorities say that he photographed sensitive military aircraft near Offutt Air Force Base in Nebraska and planned to target another installation as he prepared to leave the country. Tianru Liang, 21, is accused of violating a federal law that restricts photographing defense installations without authorization, according to court documents filed in the Eastern District of New York. Authorities say Liang was taken into custody on April 7th while attempting to board an international flight just days after a warrant was issued in Nebraska. So you might kind of seem like they scooped him up as he was headed back to China, but here's the plot twist. He was headed back to the college where he is a student, the University of Glasgow in Scotland. Liang, who is understood to be studying aeronautical engineering in Scotland, was arrested at John F. Kennedy Airport in New York on April 7th, where he had a reservation for a one-way flight to Glasgow via Frankfurt. He is expected to appear in court later this month. Well, he was in fact a student of aeronautical engineering in Scotland. That explains everything. That explains why he flew all the way from Scotland, made his way to Nebraska, and just happened to film some of the United States Air Force's most sophisticated and classified aircraft. I mean, that explains everything, right? That explains it. That explains it. Okay. So yes, that was sarcasm, and yeah. So in case your sarc meter's busted, I'll make it easy for you. But according to an FBI affidavit, investigators were alerted after a witness reported seeing a male holding a camera with a telescopic lens near the base where aircraft are stationed on the flight line. Offutt hosts high-value reconnaissance and command aircraft, including the RC-135 surveillance plane and the E-4B Night Watch, often referred to as the military's Doomsday plane. Federal agents say Liang later admitted to photographing several aircraft at the base, including the ones that we just talked about. So, you know, you could almost make the claim that it was a dumb foreigner, didn't know what he was doing, and that, you know, as somebody who's studying aeronautical engineering, he just wanted some cool pictures. Except the aircraft that he most definitely chose to photograph were heavily classified. So yeah, pardon me, coffee sip had to be done. Has to be at least one or two every half hour if you're new around here. And that's a little on the light side because that's actually only my first cup, second cup today. I don't know. I think it may still be my first one. Okay, so let's see what else we can get into real quick. Now, I think we're going to start leaving behind the international segment for a bit because, look, I've already told you most of the meat of everything that's going on in Iran. Trump's given them 3 to 5 days. Apparently, the IRGC has allegedly kidnapped the current Ayatollah, whoever that may be, because we're not even sure. And the administration is recognizing the fact that country's leadership is entirely fractured, and they're trying to give them some time to figure out who they're going to let be in charge to see if there's anybody that we can talk to. So I have to admit, after seeing everything that I saw yesterday and hearing everybody freak out when Donald Trump extended the deadline and blah, 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 and did this and did that, I was mad about it. I really, really was. But the more I've dug into it, the more that I realize that there's kind of more going on here than what we're being told. And that's always the case, especially when you're dealing with military operations. But the fact that so many on the left are just openly cheering for the other side when it comes to Iran is insane to me. Because, well, I said we were going to leave it behind, but I forgot. I didn't go into detail on this part. So we're going to get to, I knew there was something I was leaving behind, but we'll get to this and then take the break. So you might actually think that Iran would be kind of happy after President Trump announced that he would be continuing the ceasefire until their proposal is submitted and discussions are concluded, but they actually seem kind of mad about it, which doesn't really make sense. According to Iranian state TV, Iran does not recognize the extension of the ceasefire announced by Trump. It may not commit to it and will act in accordance with its national interest. Now, of course, everybody on the left and even some of the folks on the right are using this as if Trump's looking like he got pantsed on the world stage and is being made to look weak, etc. But I think the problem with this is everybody in the media has gotten used to an administration that could and would be lucky if it managed to pull off one thing at a time. But nobody's talking about the multi-pronged approach being taken with Iran from multiple directions, and I don't just mean militarily. But why would they be unhappy about this? Because the blockade continues. Just because they aren't having bombs dropped on them doesn't mean they aren't still getting choked out by the blockade. We talked about that a little bit ago. This is reportedly costing them anywhere between $435 million a day to $550 million a day. And their currency is already at zero based against the US dollar. However, the Treasury Secretary has been explaining exactly how the Iran Revolutionary Guard Corps, specifically the guys behind the regime, are being hit right in their wallet, and it's happening big time. And I quote from his X account, "As POTUS has made clear, the United States Navy will continue the blockade of Iranian ports. In a matter of days, Karg Island storage will be full, and the fragile Iranian oil wells will be shut in, or in this case, technically kind of shut down. Constraining Iran's maritime trade directly targets the regime's primary revenue lifeline. The U.S. Treasury will continue to apply maximum pressure through economic fury, because remember, we have epic fury going on the battlefield, we have economic fury going on behind the scenes, and this is being used to systematically degrade Tehran's ability to generate, move, and repatriate funds. Any person or vessel facilitating these flows through covert trade and finance risks exposure to U.S. sanctions. We continue to freeze the funds stolen by the corrupt leadership on behalf of the people of Iran." So why is Karg so important? We've talked about it before, but if you're new around here, I'll give you a quick refresher. 90% of Iran's crude oil comes through a terminal on the island, transported through pipes from the mainland. The tankers then come back down the Gulf and out of the Strait of Hormuz to China, the main buyer of Iranian oil, who buys it at a steep below market value discount, which I keep explaining this. With what's happening in Iran right now, Donald Trump is weakening Russia and China and Iran all at the same time. Now, I've never been one of these people that likes to use the 4D chess and 5D chess analogies that everybody throws around for this man, because I don't really think of him as a genius. But this was smart in ways that we're not going to understand for years, especially if it does what we hope it's going to do. And the problem with all of this is, if this was any other president in any other time in history, they would be being lauded right now for everything that they're doing to clean up a mess that we made 50 years ago, over 50 years ago. And this is our mess. I've been saying this for years. We made this mess back in the 50s. I understand why they did what they did at the time, because they just finished fighting a huge socialist monster, Iran tries to elect a socialist prime minister, and both British and American people were like, yeah, no, we're not doing this again. Because he wanted to nationalize the company that eventually became British Petroleum. And the Brits weren't happy about it. So we helped destabilize the region and get him ousted. I have never been a fan of Team America World Police. I am a fan of Team America cleaning up its own messes, though. All right, so we're going to take a break. When we come back, I don't really know what I want to play on the break. But we're going to take a break. I haven't decided yet. But we do have to take a break because I've got more to get into. Lots more to get into. Hope you guys are enjoying the show. Again, it is Chat Lives Matter Day right here live on KLRMradio.com. I am Rick Robinson. I'll also be back tonight with a special America Off the Rails. I'll be honest, I forgot I was supposed to be off Sunday night, and then I realized I was going to be off Thursday anyway. So I went ahead and did Kingdom and Country Sunday night when it's my usual off night for the week. And I didn't get to do Monday's Rails. So, no. Who else wanted to sniff some white stuff right then? Just me. Might have been just me. I'm kind of okay with that anyway. All right. So anyway, yeah, I didn't get to do the America Off the Rails show Monday night, so we're doing it tonight, starting at 7. I'll be here for the entire night for Chat Lives Matter night as well, in one form or another. So we'll be right back. Stay tuned.
No script, just an eagle in the sky. From DC to Tulsa, he's calling it out. Mike in his hand, yeah, he's got the cloud. All-Latin radio, raw and real, tune in, speak up. When the call comes in, somebody answers. Day or night, they're already moving. Calm voices, fast hands, doing the work while the rest of the world freezes. From a headset to a truck, from a badge to a door, they don't stop to count the cost. They step in when it matters. It's not about being seen, it's about being there. They're holding the line when the lines go dead, standing their ground when the world goes dark. They're the calm in the chaos, holding the line through the fire, the flood. When everything falls, they don't ask why, they just answer the call. Always standing in the gap for us all. Before the sirens fade, before the scene is clear, someone's already making sense of the moment. Keeping people alive, keeping things from getting worse. Some run toward danger, some stay behind and hold it together. Different roles, same weight, same promise to show up. When everything's on the line, they're already there. They're holding the line when the lines go dead, standing their ground when the world goes dark. They're the calm in the chaos, holding the line through the fire, the flood. When everything falls, they don't ask why, they just answer the call. Always standing in the gap for us all. This is service, this is sacrifice, this is how lives are saved. No spotlight, no applause, just showing up again and again. They're holding the line when the world goes dark. When everything's breaking, they hold their ground. They're the calm in the chaos, holding the line. So we raise our voices for the ones who stand. Every voice, every badge, every helping hand. They don't ask why, they just answer the call. Always standing in the gap for us all. Always standing in the gap for us all. For those who run and for those who hold steady. For those who stand in the gap. From red dirt roads to the Capitol steps.
And welcome back into the program, ladies and gentlemen. I want to give a quick shout out to Denny hanging out in the chat. We've got some pretty, the numbers are kind of low for a Wednesday, but they're not terrible. I've got some stuff spread out all over pretty much every platform. So our chats are open. Feel free to say hi if you want. It doesn't matter. You don't have to talk. And for everybody who's like, I don't understand why your chat's always so empty if all these people are paying attention to you. It's the same thing that I found out on terrestrial radio. I used to fill in here locally all the time and actually did shows for almost 3 weeks running for a morning show. And I had the same 7, 8 people call me every single time. So people don't like to talk to radio, folks, and except for the few that do. Anyway, but okay. So we've been focusing mainly on Iran for right now. We do have some other national or international stage stuff to get to before we shift things very nationally, because things have gone nuts. Yeah. Okay. So, because there's lots of stuff. So we talked about the whole China thing and their continued espionage, and this again. I'm gonna tie this back to something we've been talking about for a while now, and that is this whole birthright citizenship stuff. Unless we want to continue to just cede more and more authority to China, we got to end the current use of birthright citizenship, because I'm going to say this again. This means people that are communist can come over here, stand on a beach for a minute, drop a baby, apply for U.S. citizenship for their baby, and then take them home and have them raised and propagandized by the CCP. And I know I have rules. I've now mentioned China more than once, so now we got to do this.
China is asshole.
It's not my fault, man, because they really are. Oh, so I wanted to talk about this. I saw this while I was on the break, and I'm going to see if I can find it again, because I've managed to not. I didn't click on it while I was thinking about it. So I'm looking to see, where did I see that story? Because I just saw one that was like weird, because it was somebody who basically had put out the idea of, where did we get the idea that made in China meant low quality? Oh, it was on X, and I didn't bookmark it. But still, I don't really need to go too far into their line of thinking, because I can tell you why made in China means low quality, because they produce crap in China. And they really do. Even the reason that the American companies started shifting a lot of their stuff to China was to try to keep prices lower. And look, I get it. I understand. We are bargain hunters. We are always people looking to get stuff on the cheap, on the discount, whatever we can do. But I'm going to say this again. You kind of get what you pay for. It's the reason why you can, everybody talks about the minor differences between Toyota and Lexus, because they're basically the same company. Just one is more expensive. But the reason one is more expensive is because one tends to last a little bit longer than the other. And it doesn't necessarily go the way you think, because everybody's like, well, you're basically getting the same car if you get the Toyota version. It just doesn't have some of the bells and whistles. Yeah, it's also not as nicely crafted and not using a lot of the same engine parts, etc. Because while they look the same on the outside, what is on the inside is a little different. But yeah, anyway. So, yeah. But yes, Chinese crap is Chinese crap. Just saying. All right. So, gonna start moving things into kind of more of the national angle, but not in the vein of the big stuff that we're going to be getting into in hour two, because there's still plenty of stuff to talk about. And this is a clip from Eric Doherty. This is the person who Donald Trump wants to lead the Fed. And I'm just going to play the clip and then we'll talk about it because I laughed my ass off. I'm just going to be honest. Here we go.
In one aspect of President Trump's economic agenda with which you disagree.
Well, Senator, the Federal Reserve in recent years has wandered outside of its remit, wandered into other areas.
I'm asking for something
That's
you
not something I'm
disagree with
prepared to
Donald
do.
Trump on.
If I'm
Just
confirmed,
one
the Federal
one
Reserve should stay in
economic
its
issue.
lane.
Just one little place where you disagree with Donald
Well, I
Trump.
do have a disagreement, actually, Senator, with the president. I think even this morning, he said that he thought I was out of central casting. I think central casting, I'd look older, grayer, and maybe show up here with a cigar of sorts.
Quite adorable. But you know, we need a Fed chair who is independent. That's the only way we preserve the independence of the Federal Reserve. If you can't answer these questions, you don't have the courage and you don't have the independence.
Okay, so Pocahontas wants to start talking to people about integrity. So I didn't really laugh at his joke so much. Don't get me wrong; it was a pretty cool joke. It was all right. But what I laughed about was her. Well, we need a Fed chair that's independent from Donald Trump. You know what? I'm going to say this again. We don't need a Fed, much less a Fed chair. We don't. Centralizing our bank was one of the biggest, dumbest decisions that we have ever made because it changed the entire trajectory of this company. It started the process to decouple our money from tangible assets. It started the process for government agencies that have and has been confirmed by Doge magic money printers. So when they run out, certain agencies can just fire up a printer and start printing out more money. Not the Fed. Not the Fed. Government agencies with access to Fed computers that have the ability to put out more money in the form of zeros and ones, which is stupid. We have saturated the market with our money, which has devalued it like crazy. And then everybody wonders why everything's so much more expensive than it used to be. Our money sucks. And the scary thing is, if you adjust for the rate of inflation, most things really aren't that much more expensive than they used to be. When you take into account that minimum wage when things were cheap was $1.25. But what a lot of people don't realize is the amount of silver that was being used to generate that $1.25 when you pay it in 5 quarters was about $40 at the time, adjusted for inflation in today's money. So we don't have a money problem in this country in the way that you think. We have a problem with people thinking that they should just be able to print money whenever they want. We have spending problems in this country. We have a government that is want to do anything about its spending problems. Now, they talk to you and me about it all the time. Well, because of this, this, and this, you owe the IRS X amount of dollars, and you have to deal with it now. We don't have the capability to fire up a money printer. I wish we did. Oh, damn, I forgot. I got to pay the electric bill and I'm broke. Hey, honey, let's go fire up that money generating laser printer we got. We do that. It's counterfeit. The government does it. It's business as usual. I need you to really let that part sink in, because we have created a rules for thee but not for me scenario with our government. They have golden ticket healthcare. They have a golden parachute when they get out, as long as they've been in service for a certain amount of time. You and I don't have access to those things anymore. Why should they? If they're going to put laws and rules in place for me and you, they should have to live and work under those same laws and rules. If we have to budget to survive, so should they. If we have to go to an urgent care clinic and pay cash, then at times, so should they. If you want things like the Abominable Care Act fixed, you have to make the government use it because it ain't broke for them, and they have healthcare that you and I are going to be paying for the rest of our lives. They have retirement packages that you and I are going to be paying for the rest of our lives. This was all supposed to be about public service, not golden parachutes. And I've said this before because while I'm on this topic, I'm starting to see a lot of people talking about term limits again. Let me clue you in on something. Oklahoma has term limits. Everybody thought it was going to be an amazing idea. But what has happened is we have forced some of the best people that have been in those seats out. And what has started happening is you've had people that have gone into it, realize that they only have a certain amount of time to get things done, try to do whatever they can do to keep their constituents on their string. And then about a year before they hit their expiration date, they're doing everything they can to line up a golden parachute of some sort, either whether it's pursuit of another office later or some sort of private sector gig that pays them millions of dollars a year. So everything has consequences. What we have to start deciding is what consequences we are willing to put up with and what ones we are not willing to put up with. And I am tired of having people that are supposed to be the ones working for me and you living like they are the Duke and Duchesses of America, because that's what they do. Now, that is by design. And it's our fault. We have made politics so damned expensive that it's almost impossible for anybody that doesn't have either a silver spoon shoved up their yes sirree bob or access to unlimited funds and money to even get elected anymore. And everybody thinks that's not by design, that it just kind of came about that way. But I would like to remind you that a lot of what we're going to be talking about the next hour is exactly how the Democratic Party became a lot like the mob. And let's face it, other than seeming to like to be out of power because they can fundraise better, meaning the Republicans, they kind of have the same kind of stuff going on. The difference is the left has totally jumped the shark, and they're not even hiding it from you anymore. There are so many things that we're going to be talking about next hour that prove and should make you understand why, at the national level, the Democratic Party is supposedly really unpopular. However, they keep managing to win local and state elections, and even the one in Virginia from last night. But the thing about it is, and we'll be getting into this in more detail, they had to spend a lot of money to get those 2 points, 2.5 points, 2.2 3/4 points, whatever it was. They had to spend a lot of money to get there, and they still didn't hide the cheat. We'll be getting into that too. But yeah, I mean, all of this is just driving me nuts because the government keeps acting like there's rules for us and not for them, and nobody wants to hold them accountable. And it's crazy. But in the last little bit that I want to get to, as far as the Iran stuff and the international stuff, this is from Dimitri Bolt over at Town Hall. Hang on. I think there may be a clip, but it's taken a minute to load. So hang on. I thought I had a clip for it when I loaded it earlier. Yep, I was right. I do. All right. So this is Victor David Hansen, or Victor Davis Hansen. I think. Did I get his name wrong? I think I got his name wrong. Yeah, Victor Davis Hansen. I don't know why I've always called him David, but I knew I was saying it wrong when I said it. But I already said it, so I had to correct it. All right, here we go.
Victor, extending the ceasefire, you know, the critics of the administration is saying, here we go again. We're just giving them more time. But Trump's, crazy like a fox here. And he knows that, as the Admiral just said, we can move at any time we want.
Yeah, I don't think they think that they have three choices. If they submit, they're going to be humiliated, so they don't want to do that, whoever's in charge. Or they can attack and send some missiles. If they do that, they're going to lose big time their infrastructure. Or I think the most viable, they think, is to drag this out and out. But Donald Trump still has 6 months before the midterms. I don't think they have more than 6 or 7 days. until they're going to be broke, and we can even ramp that up. So all the cards are in our hands. The only thing they have for them, Laura, is they feel in this echo chamber of these rival cliques that are running the government. They feel the American left or the anti-war movement, when they hear what you just reported, that the U.S. senator said it's awesome that their and that was false. Nobody got through, but he was echoing their propaganda. Or Tim Walz is over in Barcelona saying that this whole enterprise is fascistic. Or Tom Friedman says, well, he'd like Iran to lose, but not if it helps the Trump administration. They hear all that, and so they feel, they magnify that, and they think, well, you know what, the left will if we can hold out to the midterms, the left will win and cut off fundings, and we'll get out of this okay. So I thought it was always scurrilous to accuse someone of rooting for the enemy, but I'm just quoting them at their own speech.
All right, so there you have Victor Davis Hanson kind of echoing some of the things that we've been saying around here. And again, I would like to point out that in any other time in history, the opposition party rooting for an enemy of ours would be considered bad. But since it's Trump, it's fine. All right, so we got to talk about this real quick. Well, I say quick, but I'm probably going to run the whole thing, and it'll take us to the top of the hour. But this should pretty nicely close out our segment on Iran and international news, because this happened. We hinted to it earlier. I told you I was going to find the clip and let you see it for yourself. But hang on. I just realized I did something wrong. Okay, so let me make sure this is on the screen first and make sure it plays, because I've been switching for a lot of tabs, and I know the system doesn't like it when I do that. So hang on.
Fox News alert: bridge and power plant day could now be any day of the week. A fierce power struggle breaking out in Iran, and President Trump showing a lot of patience. 47 says U.S. airstrikes have seriously fractured the regime, so Pakistan asked us to hold off on B&P Day until Iran can get it together. Tonight, there could be a coup. No one knows who's calling the shots. Vance, Witkoff, and Kushner were supposed to leave for Islamabad, but they never took off because the Iranian delegation never took off, which is suspicious because this morning, Trump said the gay Ayatollah authorized the deal.
They just got the okay to go forward, which I knew they were going to do anyway. I mean, I don't think they had a choice. They have to negotiate. And, you know, the one thing I'll say is this: Iran can get themselves on a very good footing if they make a deal. They can make themselves into a strong nation again, a wonderful nation again. They have incredible people. But they seem to be, you know, bloodthirsty.
So the gay Ayatollah told his ministers wheels up, but the military said not so fast. We're basically looking at another Iranian hostage crisis. This time they've taken themselves hostage, and therefore the negotiations. The IRGC won't agree to sign over the Strait and the uranium, and they're the only votes that matter because they're the ones with the guns. The generals are demanding Trump lift the blockade as a precondition for more peace talks. They want to play an economic game of chicken.
Iran sees this as a game of endurance. They believe that time is on their side and that ultimately the domestic pressure when it comes to energy markets and the stock market will force President Trump to make a deal that's in their favor. That is not the truth. That is not the reality. The president and his counterparts in Israel have the ability to continue this operation for months if they need to.
It's the Iranians up against the clock. The blockade's already cost them over $1 billion. Checks are bouncing, and their economy's in a death spiral and facing a Great Depression. Scott Bessent says, quote, in a matter of days, Kharg Island storage will be full, and the fragile Iranian oil wells will be shut in. The blockades turned around 28 ships sailing to or from Iranian ports, most of them oil tankers. And we took custody of a runner sailing in from China with missile ingredients.
We caught a ship yesterday that had some things on it which wasn't very nice. A gift from China, perhaps. I don't know. But I was a little surprised, but because I have a very good relationship, and I thought I had an understanding with President Xi, but that's all right. That's the way war goes, right?
And it just got worse for the enemy. The Navy boarded another vessel from their shadow fleet, the Tiffany. How cute. A sanctioned tanker carrying 2 million barrels of Iranian crude sailing to Shanghai. No bueno. The blockade's ripple effect is hitting Beijing. Choke points are getting squeezed from the Gulf to the Strait of Malacca. It just so happens that we conducted joint naval exercises with the Japanese in the South China Sea. And the Army just finished up joint live fire training with the Philippines. Xi's losing friends fast. The president putting pressure on the Middle Kingdom to make its proxy give up the dust. Vance isn't flying halfway across the world to Pakistan for nothing.
This could have a salutary ending. What are the chances of that? I think probably 2 in 3 right now, 65%. They're not sending the vice president over there to walk away again. They really think there'll be a deal. I think there's a 2 in 3 chance we get to it.
And if you watched primetime last night, General Petraeus also seemed optimistic about a deal. He just didn't think it'd happen today. And he was right. Our patience may be running thin, but our stockpile isn't.
It's not my choice, but it will also hurt them. It'll hurt them militarily. They use the bridges for their weapons, for their missile movements. You know, they're trying to move the missiles because we've obliterated most of their missiles, and they're trying to move their missiles around, even during the ceasefire, which I think was a good thing because we're totally loaded up. We have so much ammo. We have so much of everything that we've, like, much more powerful than it was 4 or 5 weeks ago. So we've used this to restock, and they probably have done a little bit of restocking.
Over the last 24 hours, we're seeing heavy Air Force activity, major resupplies coming in from American bases in Europe. Plus, the USS Gerald Ford just re-entered the Red Sea. And by Saturday, we'll have all 3 carrier strike groups, the Ford, Lincoln, and Bush, in theater. We might unwrap some new toys. The Marines just unveiled a new shore-to-shore landing ship designed to deliver 800 tons of troops, weapons, supplies directly to beachheads. Getting its last coat of paint is the lead ship, the USS McClung, named after a Marine major who was killed in combat in Iraq, the first female graduate of the U.S. Naval Academy to be killed in action. Our anti-sub aircraft, the P-8 Poseidon, has been surveilling the strait from the skies, and they're working overtime. So KC-135 Stratotankers are refueling them midair. We're locked and loaded. CENTCOM Commander Admiral Brad Cooper went to Israel last week, where he approved joint plans for a brand new target bank, which include energy and infrastructure and whatever missile launchers the regime dug out of the rubble. The ceasefire gave us time not only to resupply and acquire new targets, but a fresh batch of human intelligence came in. Any leader who poked his head out in the last 2 weeks is a goner. The alliance has spies all up and down Iran. So the next round of airstrikes will be devastating if it happens. Hard to know exactly what's happening inside the ranks, but sources tell Primetime the military sidelined the mullahs and are keeping the gay Ayatollah alive as a figurehead while they assert control over negotiations. They basically have a gun to the head of the negotiators, and now everyone's afraid of getting killed, not just by the Americans, but by the Iranian military. It appears that there's already been somewhat of a soft military coup, and as the blockade keeps breaking the country's bank, there could be a coup within the military. The generals are having to decide the best way to hold on to power. Is it in a post-deal Iran, or is it in a state of constant warfare? No idea. This would be like if the enemy took out Trump, Vance, and the entire cabinet in 40 seconds, knocked out our entire military, plus all of our defense contractors, and had North America surrounded with carriers. And then Speaker Mike Johnson was supposed to fly overseas for peace talks, and a bunch of 2-star generals pulled out a gun and said, "Mike, you're not going anywhere." For the first time in a long time, the president doesn't have a deadline. It's unusual for him, which tells me he's going to watch it unfold, feel it out, and a deal or an attack could happen at any minute. Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows.
Okay, you can shut up now. All right, so there you have pretty much in its entirety. I know there was a lot of commentary from him, but I wanted to let all of that play just so you guys could see everything that's developing, everything that we kind of know, even though most everybody's not talking about it. And what I've been what I told you in the opening title of the show. There are cracks and fractures happening all over Iran that almost nobody's talking about. And he's right. Imagine this from that perspective before, and then we'll take the break. Think about this as if it was us getting ready to go make a deal with somebody, and a bunch of our generals pulled out guns and said, "No, sir, you're not actually going anywhere." Yeah, that's pretty much what's happened here with Iran. Now, when we come back, we're going to shift to more national level stuff and start painting the picture of exactly how and why the Democrats have become so much like that with which they claim to be trying to fight. But my name is Rick Robinson. We're going to have to take a break. Hour 1 is in the books. Hour 2 still to come. Wherever you're watching it from, whether it be Rumble, Facebook, YouTube, X, or listening later on one of our podcast catchers, make sure you're sharing the show and telling people where you find it, even if you don't like me, because that may bring in some trolls. I like troll bashing. We'll be right back. Stay tuned.
They tried to quench the fire, drown it all in chains, tried to break our will and wash away our names. But every spark they buried only fed the flame. Now the cry of freedom's roaring through the rain. Hear the cry of freedom on the winds of change. Every voice united, breaking every chain. We were born to stand and never bow again. Let the fire of liberty forever reign. Forever reign. Now the walls are shaking from the battle cry. Truth is rising to the sky. Every soul that ever felt the weight of chains feels the fire of freedom in their veins. No more chains, no more lies. Hear the thunder as we rise. Freedom's call won't be denied. Now the fire burns worldwide. Hear the cry of freedom on the winds of change. Every voice united, breaking every chain. We were born to stand and never bow again. Let the fire of liberty forever reign. Let the fire of liberty forever reign.
Hello, friends. Do you have a moment so that we may discuss our Lord and Savior Minarchy? No, seriously, I'm just kidding. Hi, my name's Rick Robinson. I am the general manager of KLRNradio.com. We are probably the largest independent podcast network that you've never heard of. We have a little bit of everything, and by that, what I mean to tell you is we have news, pop culture, special events, conspiratainment, true crime, mental health shows, drama productions, and pretty much everything in between. So if you're looking for a new podcast home to grab a little bit of everything that you love all in one place, come check us out. You can find us on X under @KLRN Radio. You can find us on our Rumble and our YouTube channels under the same names. You can also find us at klrnradio.com and pretty much every podcast catcher known to man. So again, feel free to come check us out anytime you like at KLRN Radio.
Come gather round the footlights, lads, and hear the old boards groan. A tale of ink and iron will, of voices overblown. From mics and scripts to painted sails, we've traded shore for sea. The players will man the moon. Aye, your hands, follow me. From Long John shadowed silver grin to Jim with compass true. We speak the words, we wear the scars, we make the old world new. No gold without the work behind, no legend without sweat. A stage, a ship, a single breath. The course is not set yet. We players sail, we players sail, we players sail soon.
Fix that because I've been explaining this now for a couple of months. They said spring, I heard March, and then every time I was like, yeah, I need to go in and fix that video clip that I made. I just never really did. But anyway, so it's finally happening Friday. All right, back to the commercials.
Celebrity designer Jeff Lewis is back with Hollywood House Lift.
I'm excited to be working with new clients.
I'm not getting rid of that.
I hope I never see you both again.
An all-new season.
Those have to go. That has to go.
From oh, wow,
It's been an actual nightmare.
to oh, wow.
This is such an upgrade.
With celebrities like Josh Duhamel, Christina Ricci, and Gina Rodriguez. Dazzle me, Jeff.
It looks like Chuck E. Cheese.
Stream an all-new season of Hollywood House Lift with Jeff Lewis, now streaming on Freevee.
Hi, everyone. This is JJ, the co-founder of Good Pods. If you haven't heard of it yet, Good Pods is like Goodreads or Instagram, but for podcasts. It's new, it's social, it's different, and it's growing really fast. There are more than 2 million podcasts, and we know that it is impossible to figure out what to listen to. On Good Pods, you follow your friends and podcasters to see what they like. That is the #1 way to discover new shows and episodes. You can find Good Pods on the web or download the app. Happy listening.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
The following program contains coarse language and adult themes. Listener discretion is advised.
From red dirt roads to the Capitol steps, Rick's calling truth, no time for regrets. Fire in his voice, facts in his hand, talking sense to the heart of this land. It's the Rick Robinson Show, where the truth rides high. No spin, no script, just an eagle in the sky. From D.C. to Tulsa, he's calling it out. Mic in his hand, yeah, he's got the clout. Heartland Radio, raw and real. Tune in, speak up, and feel what we feel.
Uh-oh. Guess what day it is? Guess what day it is? Huh? Anybody?
It is Wednesday, my dudes.
Mix and callers on cue. He's a voice for the many, not the few. We'll grab your car.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. It is Chat Lives Matter Day right here live on KLRradio.com, otherwise known as Wednesday. And for those of you working for the weekend, that means you are nearly there. It is just a bit past lunchtime here in God's time zone. Is after 1 in the east, and in the west, most of y'all are probably still asleep, but that would put it somewhere around what, 10 o'clock? 10 o'clock somewhere? Yeah, y'all is early. You people living in the past. Dude, I have to admit, I lived in the Seattle area for a while. It was an adjustment, but I actually kind of liked living in the past. Other than back then, a lot of things happened on tape delay that they don't really do anymore. So I had people spoiling things for me all the time when I lived in the West Coast. My people from back home were like, "Did you see this? This was awesome!" But I'm like, "Dude, it doesn't air for me for another couple of hours, you bastard." Anyway, but yeah, so that was the one drawback. But anyway, well, one of that, and it rained all the time. But now you couldn't pay me to go back to the Pacific Northwest. As much as I loved that place, once I got used to it, I have to admit, it was a bit of a trauma for me, because this happened because my mom was involved with somebody new and decided to uproot us, and I was not dealing with that well, and it was between my 5th and 6th grade year in school, and then we moved around every year, so I got really shy and kind of just kind of became a hermit for a few years because it became harder and harder to make friends because, anyway, I'm not turning this into a therapy session. I don't even know what sparked me to say anything about it, but yeah, given the time zones. All right, so this may or may not become a juxtaposition topic later, and before we go into the rest of the show where we take a really harsh look at everything that's happening here locally, because I'm still kind of feeling a bit of an afterglow, shall we say, from the Artemis 2 stuff, and then finding out that part of Artemis 3 is already being shipped and getting ready to start being assembled for the next launch. Of course, then there was this story today about, I guess, the provider of the revamped spacesuits, and if normal timelines were kept, they wouldn't be available till 2030, 2031. And then the head of NASA and the head of that company basically looked at everybody and said, challenge accepted, because they're wanting to try to have us on the moon by 2028. And if we go back, we're supposed to never leave again. So I guess we'll find out what happened there. But for those of you who remember, the moon is a stepping stone to get us to Mars, because it's going to make so many things a lot easier. And I've said this before, if we can actually put a colony on the moon, how much easier would it be to launch long-term missions from somewhere with low gravity? Or, we could get to the point where we start building bigger space stations because it takes less resources, and we could start, actually having orbital shipyards and stuff. But so here's something interesting, because if you've been paying attention, the Curiosity rover for a long time has been sending back reports that they can find no proof of current life on Mars. Well, one of the scientists, or a group of the scientists, decided to reframe the question a bit, and I don't think you're necessarily going to believe what they found. So the Curiosity rover has been scouring Gale Crater since it arrived on the Red Planet in 2012. That was in 2012. Gale Crater almost certainly contained liquid water at one time in its history, and NASA sent Curiosity into the crater to look for signs of the chemical building blocks of life. Previous experiments hadn't yielded any positive results, so NASA decided to try something new. They altered the parameters of the experiment. As scientists might describe it, this is done to test different scenarios, improve accuracy, and see how variables interact. In other words, scientists asked different questions about the same topic that had previously been explored. In this instance, they came up with a different and sort of shocking answer. NASA's Curiosity Mars rover has found a diverse mix of organic molecules on Mars, including chemicals widely considered building blocks for the origin of life on Earth. NASA directed Curiosity's instrument array, called the Sample Analysis on Mars, otherwise known as SAM. Wonder if that was a shout out to Carter. Curious, anyway. Probably not. To collect a sample of clay minerals inside the crater in 2020, Curiosity has a unique digging tool and an onboard lab to analyze soil samples. NASA scientists examined the samples and over the last several years debated the findings. What exactly were the scientists looking at? And this is according to Popular Science. After breaking down the samples, the team identified over 20 notable chemicals, including the first instances of a nitrogen-containing molecule whose structure resembles proto-DNA. Curiosity also flagged benzothiophene, a sulfurous compound that often hitches a ride on meteorites. The same stuff that rained down on Mars from meteorites is what rained down on Earth, and it probably provided the building blocks for life as we know it on our planet, said Curiosity geological scientist and study co-author Amy Williams. According to Williams, researchers are now certain that large, complex organic molecules can remain preserved in the shallow subsurface layers of Mars. Without in-person examinations on the red planet, it remains unclear if these compounds came from past life forms, from a meteorite crashing into the planet, or through geological processes. While it is certainly not life itself, these compounds may help reveal organisms that existed on Mars billions of years ago. So there is proof that there may have been life on Mars at one point, because everybody assumes that at one point Mars and Earth were basically twins. So if the same kind of asteroids fell there that fell here, who knows? Maybe this explains the lunar spaceship theory. Maybe our ancestors built it and used it to take us from Mars to here. There's always been a theory that our circadian rhythms more closely match the Mars time as far as day rotation, etc., than they do our own. Of course, that was eventually poo-pooed and removed, but that was a big deal for a long time. So I don't really know for sure, but just kind of interesting to me. All right, so we're going to have to change gears now. I know. I wanted to have a little bit of fun today because, like I said, I have been mad ever since last night because they're not even hiding. They're not even hiding the cheat anymore. They're just doing it right in front of everybody and either hoping you don't notice or don't even care, not even caring if you do. And so this is where we get into the meat of the show for today. So, of course, we've got this. So first we got to start with, I keep telling you guys that the Democratic Party has become a lot like the mafia. So another interesting thing with the mafia is they have two sets of books. Everybody remember that? They usually have two sets of books. One's they present to the government, ones they keep for themselves, in case somebody shows up with a warrant. They're like, here's our books, and they've got a clean copy and a dirty copy. Kind of feels that way with Ilhan Omar. So because she's presenting this as what seems to be a simple accounting error, but it's like she's trying to say, well, my accountant forgot to carry the two. And I'm sorry, but when your net worth jumps by millions, that's not a rounding error. That's a red flag. According to Reuters, the Omar flap says her filing was amended after a disclosure, initially valued assets in the millions, then sharply revised downward with her office blaming an accounting error. Most people misplace a decimal. She apparently misplaced a small fortune. The amended filing reportedly reduced the range from roughly $6 to $30 million to anywhere between $18,000 and $95,000. So first of all, my problem with all of that is, even if you take all of that at face value, if you and I send something to the IRS that says, well, I've made somewhere between $18,000 and $4.95,000, so can we tax me on that lower amount? That's kind of what she's trying to do here. Yeah. So we'll get into that here in a little bit. But first, we got to get to this because Virginia Democrats are kind of saying the quiet part out loud, and it kind of seems like everybody who's on their side is cheering while the rest of us are like, eventually these people are going to turn on you too, right? So hour one was mostly about Iran and the dangerous games overseas. Hour two is going to be about something just as revealing here at home with what the Democratic machine does when it thinks it can get away with it. And Virginia gave us the cleanest example possible last night, and we watched it happen in real time. Now, according to the media, voters have approved the Democratic-backed redistricting change on April 21st, opening the door to a new congressional map that could turn a current 6-5 split into a major Democratic advantage. Reuters says the point was to help Democrats potentially flip up to 4 Republican-held seats. So let's stop pretending this is some neutral act of civic hygiene. This is a power play, plain and simple. Now, to me, this is the real headline. They spent years screaming that map drawing was practically an assault on democracy. Their current governor campaigned stating that she would not do anything regarding redistricting. And then they said all of that right up until they got the pin. Then suddenly it became fairness. Suddenly it became reform. Suddenly it became very noble to redraw a battleground state for partisan advantage. Virginia was supposed to be one of the cleaner models, not anymore. Now it's just another reminder that when Democrats talk process, what they usually mean is outcome. Translation, once you see that instinct and control of the lines, you can, if you can, the rest of the hour starts to make a whole lot more sense because it isn't just the maps. The maps were the big deal, right? And the biggest thing for me with the maps was watching this happen in real time. 90% of the votes were counted, 90%, and no was sharply in the lead. And all of a sudden, Fairfax is like, well, here's our data. Oh, and here's just the right amount of mail-in ballots to make sure that we win. Funny how that always works. But it's not just that. This, when you look, it's one thing when you take just that little snapshot and you're like, something seems kind of just not right there. But then you see everything else that's going on, from Ilhan Omar's accounting errors to what's happening with the Department of Justice and the things that they're starting to find. And this is one of the biggest ones that broke just the other day, because the Department of Justice has unsealed an indictment against the Southern Poverty Law Center this week, charging it with 11 counts, including wire fraud, bank fraud, and conspiracy to commit money laundering. Reuters and AP report prosecutors say SPLC secretly funneled more than $3 million to sources tied to extremist groups while allegedly misleading donors and banks about what was going on. The SPLC says those were informants. Fine, they can make that argument in court, but the indictment is not some imaginary right-wing fever dream. It is real, it is federal, and it is ugly. And the thing that is the most ugly about this is realizing that the very thing, and we'll be getting into this in a minute in more detail, most likely, but the very thing that supposedly prompted the potted plant to run, starting with a clip that was taken out of context, was funded by the very same people that say that their entire job is to fight this kind of stuff. They're funneling money into white supremacy groups that just happen to be showing up in places like Charlottesville, that led to the Fine People hoax, that led to Trump being taken out of context. And I repeat, there is an entire political ad with, I wasn't going to do this, but then I saw this and I felt like I didn't have a choice. And guess who orchestrated that entire moment? The Southern Poverty Law Center. Allegedly. But here's the thing. That's not all. Because then now we get into Act Blue. Because House investigators say employees invoked the Fifth Amendment 146 times in depositions tied to an investigation into alleged donor fraud and foreign money issues. Now, again, I'm going to say this. You have the right to plead the Fifth. But once you do, you're basically admitting that you've done something wrong, because that's the entire backbone of the Fifth Amendment. You are not legally required to incriminate yourself, and you can say, I'm going to plead the Fifth. But when you do that, it's kind of like when somebody reads you your Miranda rights and then sits you down at the table, and one of the first things you say is, I want an attorney. Unless you've been instructed by your attorney to say that, it usually means you've done something kind of shady. Just saying. But so 146 times in depositions tied to the investigation into alleged donor fraud and foreign money issues. Again, same instinct. Don't answer, don't explain. Just let the cleanup crew get to work. So now put Virginia, SPLC, and Act Blue in one line. Control the rules, control the money, control the narrative. That's not three separate stories. That is their operating system. And even when it gets personal, when the questions get simple and direct, the attitude does not change. And I don't think it ever will. Now we're going to go ahead and take the break here in just a moment. When we get back, I told you we were going to get more into the Elon, or Elon, the Omar accounting error, and then we've got some more to get into because lifelong Democrats jumping ship left and moving right. See what I did there? See what I did there? All right, so we're going to take a break. We'll be right back. Stay tuned.
They tried to quench the fire, drown it all in chains, tried to break our will and wash away our names. But every spark they buried only fed the flame. Now the cry of freedom's roaring through the rain. Hear the cry of freedom on the winds of change. Every voice united, breaking every chain. We were born to stand and never bow again. Let the fire of liberty forever reign. Forever reign. Now the walls are shaking from the battle cry. Truth is rising to the sky. Every soul that ever felt the weight of chains feels the fire of freedom in their veins. No more chains, no more lies. Hear the thunder as we rise. Freedom's call won't be denied. Now the fire burns worldwide. Hear the cry of freedom on the winds of change. Every voice united, breaking every chain. We were born to stand and never bow again. Let the fire of liberty forever reign. Let the fire of liberty forever reign.
Hello, friends. Do you have a moment so that we may discuss our Lord and Savior Minarchy? No, seriously, I'm just kidding. Hi, my name's Rick Robinson. I am the general manager of KLRNradio.com. We are probably the largest independent podcast network that you've never heard of. We have a little bit of everything, and by that, what I mean to tell you is we have news, pop culture, special events, conspiratainment, true crime, mental health shows, drama productions, and pretty much everything in between. So if you're looking for a new podcast home to grab a little bit of everything that you love all in one place, come check us out. You can find us on X under @KLRNradio. You can find us on our Rumble and our YouTube channels under the same names. You can also find us at KLRNradio.com and pretty much every podcast catcher known to man. So again, feel free to come check us out anytime you like at KLR. All right, for some reason that one wasn't running, but I just want to remind you tonight, yes, I'll be back for Chat Labs Matter Night starting at 7 p.m. Eastern. But Friday night, don't forget, Treasure Island presented by the KLR Radio Players kicks off in the time slot of He Said, She Said, 8:30 p.m. Eastern. All right, so now back to our regularly scheduled commercials.
Hi, everyone. This is JJ, the co-founder of Good Pods. If you haven't heard of it yet, Good Pods is like Goodreads or Instagram, but for podcasts. It's new, it's social, it's different, and it's growing really fast. There are more than 2 million podcasts, and we know that it is impossible to figure out what to listen to. On Good Pods, you follow your friends and podcasters to see what they like. That is the number one way to discover new shows and episodes. You can find Good Pods on the web or download the app. Happy listening.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
The following program contains coarse language and adult themes. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome back into the program, ladies and gentlemen. Again, it is Chat Lives Matter Day. Make sure you come back tonight starting at 7 p.m. Eastern for the Chat Lives Matter night lineup. Hosted and anchored by yours truly starting at 7 p.m. Eastern with a special edition of America Off the Rails, since I already did a bonus Kingdom and Country on Sunday and couldn't do Rails on Monday because I was running errands and helping friends with issues. All right, so anyway, it's one thing to know here that you're right about something. It's another thing when you start seeing it proven out in real time. And I've been saying this a lot over the last couple of days. This is something that I've been saying for a while now. If there were political equivalents to organized crime, the Democrats would embody that. And I'm not necessarily saying the Republicans don't to a smaller scale. But at least there are folks within our group trying to fight it, not embrace it. So there's that. But we're going to get into more of this as we go. But before we do, I want to remind you, today is technically Earth Day. So I do hope that you have trash burning and tire fires and everything else going. Make sure you leave out curdled milk for the dead penguins. Just saying. Wait, we should have done that yesterday, but I didn't do a show yesterday. So anyway. All right. Yes, I'm making fun of Earth Day because, look, every day is Earth Day. And the thing about it is, a lot of people on the right want to be as much good stewards as the folks on the left. We just don't want to use political fear-mongering to make it happen because it's not necessary. Just saying. All right. So let's keep things rolling here because we do have a little bit more to get through and only a few minutes to do it. So, all right. So I told you we were gonna take a little bit of a different look at the whole Elon Omar thing. So now the thing about it is this is just the latest in the string of things that should have brought Elon Omar to everyone's attention a lot sooner than it has, like apparently committing immigration fraud and marrying her brother. Now the thing about it is, knowing enough about how immigration law usually works, that would make Elon a brother humper. Or Elon, not Elon. Sorry, Elon. Don't nuke my account because I keep mispronouncing her name. I don't know why. But yeah, that would basically, knowing at least a little bit about immigration law and things that have to take place for a marriage to be considered legal and lawful and stuff, that would probably make her, at least on paper, a brother humper. But this part would be shady if it wasn't. It would be funny if it weren't so shady. So we talked about this a little second ago. Omar amended a financial disclosure after an earlier filing appeared to value assets in the millions. And in some instances, depending on which reports you look at, they showed valuations as high as roughly $30 million on the outside range before the amended version knocked that way down. And according to our office, when reached for comment, they said, yeah, that was an accounting error. And yeah, I'm sorry, but no. They want you to think this was just an accountant forgetting to carry a 2 or something. And I'm sorry, but when your net worth jumps by millions, that's not a rounding error. That's, again, a red flag. So, not gonna lie, a lot of people have made tax mistakes and people have, misplaced a decimal point here and there. But normally when they do, it maybe drops things down by from, maybe hundreds to tens or tens to ones, not millions to thousands. That's a lot of decimals and commas. That just doesn't make any sense. But the icing on the cake, when she got asked about this by reporters, she snapped at a reporter instead of just clearing the thing up. That's the pattern again. Legitimate question, hostile response. Transparency is for thee, but not for me. So, no, I'm legitimately not buying the idea that this was just some innocent bookkeeping hiccup. Maybe it was an error, maybe it wasn't. But when the number swings that wildly, people are allowed to ask questions without being treated like they're the ones that committed a crime. Because let's face it, even if this was a legitimate accounting error, this is still getting into the realm of a potential tax fraud crime, even if it was an accident. Because my question becomes, if her stuff is really that low, why did she have to raise her valuation? Because this, again, going back to the mom analogy, seems like two versions of books. And the problem is now she's got caught cracking the spine on both versions, and nobody knows which one is the right one. So, according to her, this is an accounting error. And I'm going to say this again. Now, this isn't always the case. I have been righteously indignant when accused of things before, but 9 times out of 10, when somebody gets as angry about something as she did when she was questioned about this, it usually means that they're hiding more than we realize. So, no, I'm not buying that this was a hiccup, because even if it was an error, that's way too wide of a swing. So here's the part that the Democrats should be worried about, because everything that we've talked about today, from the fraud being exposed with the SPLC, the USAID stuff, there's a story that we may or may not even have time to get into, that folks that were, once integral in USAID doing some not so cool things are now on food stamps and everything else. We may or may not have time to get into that towards the end. I don't really know. I'm not trying to laugh at anybody's pain, because I have, after having to, shelve a company, spent a few months using those kind of programs. So I completely understand. And I'm not trying to make light of it. But again, USAID is another one that's been embroiled in all kinds of scandals. Our money, your money, and my money was being used in other countries to foment left-leaning ideologies, to the point where certain countries were like, we don't even want your money anymore, because you're telling us that in order for us to be able to accept that money, we have to accept your stuff about transing our kids, and we don't want to do that. And you may remember when I talked about that from countries in Africa years ago. This was 2-3 years ago at this point, where this started to become a thing, before we even found out exactly what was going on with USAID. But now, now you've got that. You've got Act Blue getting in trouble. You've got SPLC getting in trouble. And now here's the other problem, because now we're starting to see more cracks in the Democratic dam. First, you had RFK Jr. leave. Dude has done some weird stuff. And I know I almost said a different word, but he's done some weird stuff. And most recently, apparently, there was a report that he may or may not have dissected a penis off of a dead raccoon, to study later. So maybe not the best example to lead with, but then there's Elon Musk, who again, I'm saying. But here's one that surprised me. Alan Dershowitz, a lifelong Democrat, published in the Wall Street Journal that he is becoming a Republican, not because he suddenly turned into Barry Goldwater overnight, but because, in his words, the Democratic Party has become the most anti-Israel party in American history. That is not some MAGA troll saying it. That is a man who spent decades in and around Democratic politics saying the party moved somewhere he can no longer follow. And that matters because it lines up with the broader mood problem Democrats are already dealing with. So AP Nork reported in February that rank-and-file Democrats still had not bounced back in how they felt about their own party after the 2024 loss. So even when they notch a few tactical wins, the underlying confidence problem is still there. Add to that the resignation this week of Democratic Rep. Sheila Sheriffless McCormick ahead of an ethics hearing. Quelle surprise. While she faces federal criminal charges, and you have a party that does not exactly radiate stability right now. So that's the thing for this entire hour, because again, it's one thing to sit here behind a microphone in front of a camera and yell at you that the Democratic Party is no better than the mob. But now we're starting to see receipts. So Virginia shows what they're willing to do to hang on to power. SPLC and Act Blue show how the machinery works. Omar shows the arrogance when the questions get uncomfortable. Dershowitz shows that even some of their old allies are starting to say, I'm kind of out. I'm done. And this goes back to Klubik, who, after the story broke with, with Fang Fang Bang Bang, that all of a sudden he was like, yeah, you know what? I can't do this anymore. Now, whether he legitimately changed his party affiliation, I don't know. I don't care. But when you've got prominent supporters and prominent donors saying, yeah, you know what? Enough is enough. Then it's time that the party should probably start paying attention, but they won't, because it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. Sorry, I was reading a headline and mixed in happy. This is from Amy Curtis, and this kind of goes into the same vein of, the left becoming a mob. This is from Town Hall Today from Amy Curtis. Looks like it got put out a couple hours ago. There's a certain gubernatorial candidate in Wisconsin. Maybe if you're in Wisconsin, you know who I'm talking about. Francesca Hong, because she's received an endorsement that some people might not want anymore, but apparently she's okay with it. So one of the Democratic frontrunners for Wisconsin gubernatorial candidate, Francesca Hong, has secured the endorsement of radical leftist Elon. I never met a brother I didn't want to beep Omar, and Wisconsin voters should be aware that this is another sign Democrats are determined to turn the dairy state into the next Minnesota. Hong said she was honored to receive Omar's endorsement, calling her one of the bravest voices in politics and an unwavering champion for working people. So here's Elon's endorsement. Elon's endorsement. I don't know why I keep doing that today. I'm going to get banned from X if he hears this, because anyway. Francesca Hong leads with moral clarity, compassion, and unmatched courage. Her commitment to building the policies working people need and protecting our most vulnerable populations, otherwise known as illegal aliens, is essential in our current political climate. Voters are ready for change, and Francesca meets the moment. So that in and of itself is interesting for a couple of reasons, because, to begin with, Hong would succeed Tony Evers, a Democrat. So what change would she exactly bring? Even so, Evers is pro-trans, pro-abortion, anti-ICE, and trying to destroy the state's school choice program. So again, what change would she actually bring? It's kind of an interesting point. Because, yeah. So I'm going to say this for anybody listening in Wisconsin. Vote the opposite of how you've been voting lately, especially if you don't want to get gobbled up by the mob. I mean, the interesting thing about all this, and I understand it's one of the reasons why a lot of folks are talking about how great the second season of Daredevil Reborn is, or whatever the hell the sequel series is called. I haven't really been able to get into it much because they're using Kingpin, in my estimation, as an allegory for Trump. So I haven't really enjoyed it as much as a lot of other folks have, but maybe that's because I do this all the time, and there are times that I can't really get away from the politics of things. But the scariest thing about this is, if you really think about it, the reason they keep trying to paint Trump as a mob boss is because they are. That has been their take for decades, for well over a decade now, is that he is basically nothing more than a mob boss who's managed to be born with a silver spoon and wielding his power in whatever way he sees fit. And it's not about his business acumen. It's about the amount of money that he had access to when he was born. And look, I'm not trying to change any of those arguments for people. I get it. People that are born with resources have a much better and easier time basically building those resources into something else, in doing something else with those resources. And I understand that. But it still takes business smarts to do the things that this man has done, to build his name into a worldwide phenomenon that up until 11 years ago, Democrats absolutely loved. And yes, it's stuck in my head now too. Phenomenon. Phenomenon. Dun, 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 dun. Always happens, so I had to share the pain. So you're welcome. I don't know why that word does it too. But anyway. Does anybody remember when Sandra Bullock did that bit? Probably one of my favorite Muppet moments. Just saying. I kind of had a crush on her back in the day. She would probably hate me because of my politics, but I still would, just saying. Okay, so let's see what other news we can get into for the last few minutes. It's still kind of from a local vein. Yeah. So yeah, we touched on this already. I still feel like I got to bring this up. 149 times Act Blue membership and leadership pled the fifth. Wow. Nice. Just saying. All right. So, you may have, and I'm not going to play his clip anymore because I don't want to give the dude any more airtime. But the fossil of the Democratic Party, the guy who came up with the winning message for Bill Clinton, which was "It's the economy, stupid," apparently just said if they take back the White House, the Senate, and the presidency, first thing they should do is make DC and Puerto Rico states and then pack the Supreme Court. President Trump kind of had an interesting sort of response to that, but not directly. President Trump recently railed against the Supreme Court over its recent rulings on his tariffs and upcoming ruling on his birthright citizenship executive order. In a Wednesday post on Truth Social, Trump wrote, "How can the Democrats not like how the U.S. Supreme Court votes? The Democrat justices stick together like glue, never failing to wander from the warped and perverse policies, ideas, and cases put before them. They always vote in a group or block, even that new low IQ person that somehow found her way onto the bench." Thanks, Sleepy Joe. The president complained that the Republican justices don't stick together and they give the Democrats win after win, like the $159 billion pile of cash on a completely ridiculous tariff decision and nasty one-sided questions about the country destroying subject of birthright citizenship, something which virtually no other country in the world is stupid enough to allow. He further explained that birthright citizenship was meant for the babies of slaves, not for the babies of Chinese billionaires. And I agree with him there. The 14th Amendment I think it was the 14th. Sorry, I don't have my notes in front of me, but I'm pretty sure that's what it was. But that one was very specific. It was a way to get rid of the 3/5 designation baked into the Constitution because they were given full citizenship. But the shortest answer to what he just did in his tirade, is this. They don't need to pack it because it's already packed. Justice Clarence Thomas, Brett Kavanaugh, and Samuel Alito dissented the ruling that paved the way for the administration to begin the process of refunding the tariffs, which had grown to about $166 billion. On April 1st, the Supreme Court heard arguments related to President Trump's executive order eliminating birthright citizenship for the children of illegal aliens and temporary visa holders. Some of the justices pressed the administration's lawyer on whether a president can unilaterally rescind a constitutional guarantee that courts have treated as settled law. The court has not issued its ruling on the matter, but the justices have expressed skepticism about whether the president can make such a sweeping move. So yeah, I mean, he's kind of right. And the thing about it is, and this is why those of us that have been, reading the tea leaves on this kind of stuff for years have been screaming from the moment that the new Congress was sworn in that they needed to get rid of the Senate filibuster rule, or at least, if nothing else, bring it back to the old one, because now these people can basically just raise a hand like they're rolling over and hitting a snooze button on their alarm clock that says for particular justices or appointments, no, I want to blue slip this one, or no, I want to filibuster this. And then they don't even have to provide any reason as to why they're filibustering. It automatically locks in the 60 vote threshold, which is retarded. Sorry, but it is. And it's retarded. And as we come to terms with all of this, the more we are forced to face the idea and the concept that one side of our political grouping is no longer acting in our best interest. But the folks that are voting for them don't care, because they keep saying, vote for us and we'll give you more free stuff. Vote for us and we'll take care of you. Vote for us and you'll be okay. The problem is this. They almost never deliver anything they tell you they're going to deliver. Look at New York City. New York City bought the commie lock, stock, and barrel, and he's done maybe 100th of what he said he was going to do so far. And everything that he is trying to implement, some of it won't even be able to take place until after he's out of office. Seriously? All right, so we got to get to these two quick hits because I've got a bit of breaking news that I didn't notice until just now, because this actually just came out a few minutes ago. So this was just put out as an update from President Trump. Very good news. I have just been informed that the 8 women protesters who were going to be executed tonight in Iran will no longer be killed. 4 will be released immediately, and 4 will be sentenced to 1 month in prison. I very much appreciate that Iran and its leaders respected my request as President of the United States and terminated the planned executions. Thank you for your attention to this matter. So here are the names of the 8 women, 2 of whom are said to be teenagers. The 8 women were identified as Bida Hamat, Ghazal Shalandari, Golnaz Naraji, Venus Hassan Najad, Pana Mavahadi, Insaya Nehati, Mabuhin Shabani, and Diana Tehar Abadi. This was information that was released by the Lawfare Project, a Jewish human rights nonprofit based here in New York. So we'll see. We'll see. This could be great news. But again, Iran often says and does completely different things than what they tell us they're going to do. But this could also mean that this may be another reason why the president has given them the 3 to 5 day window. And look, I'm going to say this again. The whole over the weekend, there was this report that Donald Trump tried to use the nuclear football on Iran. And of course it was, this entire thing has been debunked. And all I have to say about all of that is this. Because I've been saying for a while, somebody should have turned Paradise into a parking lot a long time ago. I tried to say that on X yesterday and got the "you have to delete this or else" message. So, yeah. Anyway. Apparently, the truth is now being frowned upon in this particular establishment. All right, so a couple of quick hits on the way out the door. I thought this one was kind of a big deal, especially because the funny thing is, and again, it was 50 years ago, so I was little because I'm about to be 53. But everybody tells me what a big deal America's 200th birthday was, how there was, all these big celebrations, all these things that were happening because, hey, we've lasted 200 years. Our founding fathers said we'd be lucky if we lasted 50. And because they said that. I'm not just making that up. But now it's 250 years and it's like nothing. Half the celebrations are starting to be canceled because, everybody has safety concerns, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. But again, how much of this goes back to the SPLC paying people to cause problems? Interesting when you start thinking about it from that angle, huh? So I don't really know how I feel about this because, the whole trans spokes critter thing, but looks like Anheuser-Busch is trying to get back into her good graces. Big Beer is America First as Anheuser-Busch pours $600 million into American manufacturing jobs. And again, so we all remember during the 2016 presidential campaign when former President Barack Obama was asked about blue-collar jobs that continued to go overseas. He stated matter-of-factly that some of those jobs of the past are just not going to come back, and even added a bit of snark, saying of then candidate Donald Trump, who had promised a revival of manufacturing jobs, there's no answer to it. What magic wand do you have? Well, like a lot of other things, it turns out we didn't actually need a magic wand, just a president who actually had a sack. So this is from Anheuser-Busch themselves. We're proud to increase our investment in U.S. manufacturing to $600 million over the next 2 years, expanding technical skills training, supporting veteran careers, and brewing futures, because nothing goes better than American beers and American careers. Now, my problem with all of that is Anheuser-Busch isn't exactly an American company anymore, unless there's something that I've missed and they're moving their headquarters back home. So I don't know. I guess we'll find out together. On Wednesday, beer giant Anheuser-Busch announced it would be expanding its promise to create and sustain American manufacturing jobs by increasing investments in U.S. operations to $600 million through 2025 and 2026. According to Anheuser-Busch CEO Brandon Whitworth, who stated the following: Anheuser-Busch's $600 million investment is a testament to our unwavering commitment to the future of American manufacturing. By strengthening our manufacturing operations, we are creating sustainable careers, not just jobs, and investing in the people who are vital to our success. We are proud to continue building the next generation of manufacturing leaders through our new technical training centers, while also providing new opportunities to the workforce of our nation's veterans. So their extensive plan is based on three things: creating and sustaining manufacturing jobs, building the manufacturing workforce for the future, and strengthening manufacturing careers opportunities for veterans. They plan to open a total of 15 new technical skills training centers at AB facilities across the country and collaborate with technical trade schools. The idea is to upskill more than 90% of the technical workforce over the next 5 years. So far, more than 2,700 have received training at the first best-in-class technical excellence center of AB at AB's home in St. Louis. So yeah, kind of a big deal, and kind of goes along with the whole, we should be making a lot bigger deal about everything that's happening in this country than we are, but everybody hates it because it's all happening under Trump, which makes 0 sense to me. Anyway, we are just about out of time. I think there was one other thing that I wanted to get to real quick. I'm trying to find it. So we did that one already. Sorry, I'm going through my notes. One moment. All right. I think that's going to pretty much bring us to the end of our time together for today. But again, just want to remind you, looking at everything from what the SPLC has done, what Act Blue has allegedly done, and I say allegedly on both because nothing's been proven yet, and everything else that we're finding out regarding the left openly rooting for not only a political adversary, but now a military adversary, I don't really understand how they keep getting so much traction. But hey, we may get into more of that on Friday. I'll be back tonight, starting at 7 p.m. Eastern for America Off the Rails. Now, for those of you who haven't yet, you may want to go, if you have time today, listen to the Kingdom and Country episode from Sunday, because we took a spiritual angle and now we're taking the political news angle on the very same topic that was actually part of what was being talked about today, which is the waste, fraud, and abuse, and how one side seems hell-bent on hiding it and hoping that you never find out. But my name is Rick Robinson. This is my show. And again, I'll be back tonight starting at 7 with America Off the Rails. Want to remind everybody you can find me on X at KLRN Radio, Facebook. You can find the network at KLRN Radio on X, Facebook, and Rumble. Or on YouTube. You can also find it on Rumble under America's Podcast Network, because for some reason they didn't like using KLRN Radio. And you can find me at RowdyRick73 on Facebook, YouTube, and X. Anyway, I think that's it for today. I'm going to go find some lunch before I got to come back to work because it's already 1 o'clock and I haven't eaten anything yet today. I'm surprised I wasn't hangry, but here we go. Bye, everybody. Say goodnight, Gracie.
Fire in his voice, facts in his hand, talking sense to